Kyujo Shinakairo is having a dream, where he came to an end to achieve his goal, but a black devil stops him and beats him up. Kyujo tries to stop him, but the devil beats him up and his eye opens up at 3:21 p.m. He gets up and looks at the time and realizes that he overslept. Therefore, he gets up and gets ready for the work. Kyujo sends some messages to Yu, asking her if she is okay and bidding her good morning, but she does not reply him at all. He sent too many messages to her asking about her day at school and all, but she did not reply him, and it seems like she is not happy with him. He keeps the phone on the side table and tries to get up, but his lower back is hurting too bad, but he still gets up, brushes teeth, and gets ready for the work. Kyujo leaves for work and sees a road accident while working. He thinks it looks bad and sees some people making videos of the bicyclist who got hurt, but they are not helping him at all. Kyujo runs towards the bicyclist and asks if he is okay as he is seriously injured, and then he asks him to come along so that he can treat him with the first aid. The hurt bicyclist asks him, "Who is this old man?" and pushes Kyujo away when he tries to help him. Everyone starts to say that this is bad, and this is not a good man, and the police is going to be called. Kyujo gets up and someone yells at him not to leave his post, or else he is going to lose his job. Kyujo says sorry and goes back to work. When Kyujo walks away from those people, he thinks he is too kind, and he should have walked away from those worthless people. He keeps a tissue paper in his nostril to stop the fluid coming out, and the old man sitting next to him tells him, if he keeps it up, it will only get worse. Kyujo tells that old man named Watanabe that he is already aware of that and claims that his wife no longer loves him because of the way he is. Amidst, he receives message from his wife Yu telling him not to send her message and yelling at him about the fact that he keeps asking these worthless questions from her. Then she asks him not to forget about tomorrow and tells him to be ready at 1 and not to oversleep at all. After seeing this message, his eyes get filled with tears and he starts to smile. Watanabe asks him if it is his daughter, and Kyujo says that yes, he will be seeing her for the first time in a while. Watanabe finds it wonderful and stays quite so. Kyujo asks him what is the matter. Watanabe claims that his marriage life is going to end soon too, as he is getting divorced, but the sad thing is that his wife will not allow him to see his daughter. Watanabe, with an emotional voice, says that he may never get to see his daughter again, and Kyujo says sorry to him for bringing this up. Watanabe says it is fine. Amidst, the head yells at them to hurry up as they have took enough break. Kyujo and Watanabe gets up to go back to their work, and Kyujo says to Watanabe if there is anything he can do to help, and he tells him to just say the word. Watanabe asks him if he can spare some time after work, and Kyujo says yes to it. After work, both of them sit together and Watanabe says there is a condition that if he pays his wife 3 million yen compensation, he will be allowed to see his daughter, but he does not have that sort of money yet. Watanabe says that he got no other option and asks Kyujo to help him. He asks Kyujo to lend him his name so that he can see his daughter again. Kyujo starts to think that he might have messed up once again, but he got a very soft and nice heart, so he looks at Watanabe and agrees to help him. While they are having a conversation, a girl comes in between and throws water on the table. Both of them look at her in shock and ask what was that for. The girl calls one of them as her dad, and Kyujo understands that it is his daughter Yu, who is 17 years old. Kyujo asks her, why is she here, as they were supposed to meet at 11, and Yu asks him to remember that he installed the GPS system and she had a bad feeling when he said he had something to do before their meeting. Yu angrily asks her dad to stop as she has contentiously asked him many times. Then she drags him with her and asks him to come along as they are leaving, but Kyujo asks her to calm down. Amidst, Watanabe asks her to just hear her out, as he will pay the money back, and he will not trouble anyone here. He says he just needs to borrow his name, but Yu says that she cannot trust him at all. She asks him why is he asked to pay the compensation in the first place and asks him to stop involving his dad in his problems. Watanabe keeps trying to stop her, but she holds her father's hand and takes him with herself. Meanwhile, Watanabe sits on the chair with a sad look. He tries to say something angrily but stops in the middle. Meanwhile, on the other side, Kyujo asks his daughter to hold up and asks her not to put it up like that. He claims that Watanabe just wants to see his daughter very badly and there is nothing wrong with helping. Yu turns around and yells at him that it is always the same thing with him. She says their family is separated as well and asks why is he concerned about others than himself. She says if he ends up in debt again, mom will probably tell her to never see him again. Yu asks her dad if he is okay with that and he still tries to stop her. Then Yu says if he insists on helping Watanabe, then she is done with him. She keeps walking, and Kyujo yells at her to stop and runs behind her saying sorry to her. He accepts that he was in the wrong and asks her not to give up on him. He holds his daughter's hand and looks into her eyes. Yu asks her dad if he is going to say that He needs to be better and then asks why does she has to protect him. Yu is too emotional, and Kyujo hugs her and he keeps apologizing to her while accepting that he is the one at fault, and he is a very bad guy. Meanwhile, he thinks that he is her father and what is he doing? He keeps showing love to her and says that he will never do something like that again and promises her that he is going to become a good father. Both of them have a moment, and Yu asks her dad that it is his turn now to protect her, as he promised. She asks him to protect her as he is her dad, and Yu looks into her eyes and promises her, saying that she is his daughter. After they are done having sentimental moment, Yu says that she is hungry now after all that crying and asks her dad to come with her to eat. Kyujo agrees and thinks about all the things he did and decides to change himself for his daughter. While walking, he asks his daughter what she wants to eat and she says that she would like omurice or something. While she is looking at her dad and telling him what to eat, Watanabe with an angry face is standing right in front of Yu. He grabs her when she looks into his eyes and asks her not to move. Yu yells at Watanabe what is he doing, but Watanabe asks him to shut up as everyone is blaming him for everything. He says it just occurred to him, exaggerating wrong things, the separation and all the fuss, it is just bad, bad, and bad. He says he does not blame his problems. Kyujo keeps yelling at Watanabe to stop it right away and asks why is he doing this. Watanabe yells at him that he is doing it because of him, because he said if there was something he could do, then he should ask him. Watanabe angrily asks Kyujo to keep his promise, and then he asks Kyujo if he understands how he felt when he asked him for help. Kyujo realizes that it is his fault because he said that. Watanabe wants him to sign an agreement or else he will beat up his daughter. Kyujo realizes that he ended up involving his daughter. Things are getting out of hand, but Yu still wants her dad to be careful and not to listen to this man at all. She says a man like this is asked for compensation due to this behavior, and she asks her dad to call the police as soon as possible. Watanabe gets angry after hearing all this, and he gets ready to beat her up. Amidst, Kyujo runs towards her to protect her from that evil. He remembers that he promised her daughter that he will protect her, but as he gets closer to his daughter, Watanabe hits him, due to which everything starts to get black and he is not able to move his body all of a sudden. Watanabe leaves Yu, and she runs towards her dad to save him and decides to call an ambulance as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the evil Watanabe keeps saying that it is not his fault, and all this happened because of their own doings. Yu keeps asking her dad to open his eyes, while Kyujo is still thinking about her well-being and he wants her to run away from there without worrying about anything else. Yu keeps trying to wake him up, but it seems like Kyujo has decided to land on flowers. When Kyujo's eyes open up, he is stuck in some flower garden and has no clue why he is there. He starts to wonder what this place is and what is he doing there. When he looks around, there are a lot of people coming towards him. Everyone over there is shocked and clueless about the place, and a girl in black dress asks them to be quiet. Everyone shockingly asks her who she is, and the girl introduces herself as Tomoria and says that she is a guide for this place. No one knows who this woman is and they wonder if she is cosplaying or something, but she sure is a beauty as she got big melons of a size of watermelon. Meanwhile, a guy asks what is this place and questions if this is a German village. He says he was on a date with Yuzuki-kun and asks if the black lady is the one who brought him here. Tomoria says it seems like he has forgotten due to shock. She claims that this is the place where all living beings will come in the end. Tomoria says that she is going to return their memories and asks them to brace themselves. As she returns their memories with just one finger snap, and everyone starts to yell. No one could believe the reality and they say that this has to be a lie. Meanwhile, Kyujo asks himself if he is really no more and if this memory is real. He thinks about Yu while Tomoria gives them her condolences. Then she explains that this is the boundary between the world of living and the netherworld. She says, in Japan it is called the Sanzu River. Tomoria asks them to proceed over there as a peaceful end awaits them. However, some of them are still speechless, and they do not want to believe the reality, so they ask Tomoria to stop messing around as they still want to live with their families. They ask her to hurry up and let them return. Tomoria says that she is only here to guide them after they are no more, and some of them start to beg her to return them back to Earth. Kyujo kneels before her and asks her to return him back to Earth as his beloved daughter Yu is in danger, and she might get hurt. He says he does not care if it is temporary. He cannot let his daughter get hurt because of him. Another guy jumps in and says that he owes young children and he has to do a lot of things for them. Thus, he cannot afford to be here, and asks if there is a way to go back. Tomoria asks if they are unable to accept it and claims that there is one and only way to return back to the living. People ask Tomoria to tell them about it if there really is a way to go back to living. Tomoria says that she will not really recommend it, but if that is what they want then she can tell them about it. She takes them all near a mountain and tells them to go ahead to the mountain over there, and there is a door at the peak of the mountain and they can go back to living if they enter it. People wonder if that is Everest, because it seems like thousands of meters tall, and they wonder how many days will it take them to go back to living. Then a girl asks Tamoria what if their body get tired after reaching there, and the other girl says that is bad, they wouldn't go back if that happens. Tamoria asks them not to worry, as the concept of time does not exist there. She says, no matter how long they take, they will get back to living at the moment they enter the door. After hearing this, a hope of light sparks in Kyujo's little mind, and he finds it great as he will be able to save his daughter Yu if he is able to go back to living. It is tough, but it is worth it. One of the girl asks if anyone over there has any mountain climbing experience, and the army boy says that he is undergoing training with JGSDF. He comes in front and says he is not an expert, but he got some knowledge. Then another guy says that he knows a little as well. People think they can pull it off as there is hope, and they ask each other to work together and aim for the peak. Amidst, Tamoria says that she hates to burst their bubble, but there is one more thing. She says, only the first person that reaches the peak can enter the door. After hearing this, everyone gets silence and one of the guy yells at Tamoria asking what kind of condition it is. They understand that they cannot go back to living at once. Then a girl, who always differentiates between men and women, says that men have an advantage and if it is first come first served then it is unfair. Tamoria says that this rule is ordained by God and it cannot be changed, and if a person goes back to living, the door will shut for the next 100 years. Tamoria says to everyone, if they are headed there, they should be on their way. The army guy takes his steps towards the mountain and says sorry to everyone for the sake of his family. Everyone gets angry at him and says, it is bad if that guy gets a lead on them. Everyone starts to run towards the mountain as they do not want to fall behind, and Kyujo also runs after seeing them running. As he takes few steps towards the mountain, Tamoria asks everyone to wait. She asks them if they are sure about this, as the boats of Sanzu will be departing soon and they will not be returning. She asks them all if they want a normal ending, and a girl angrily asks her who will want that as they want to live. Kyujo thinks about his daughter Yu and says that he promised he will protect her and starts to run again. As everyone leaves, Tamoria takes a deep breath and says everyone has left. Meanwhile, Kyujo starts to climb the mountain and he says that his physical ability is no different even like this, and this is tough for a 40-year-old body. He keeps taking rest at different points as he keeps getting tired again and again. He starts to wonder how far he has come and he cannot tell the direction because of the fog. Then he thinks about everyone else and hears a scream, so he wonders what would have happened. Someone is yelling for help, and Kyujo gets the direction of the voice. He thinks he has to go and help, but he stops himself after realizing that only one person could come back to life. Therefore, he understands that he cannot afford to help others. He starts to walk in other direction, but the one in danger keeps shouting for help, and Kyujo could not take steps towards the peak. He got a very small mind and a very big heart, so he runs towards the scream asking where are they. He asks the direction and keeps running to see who it is. As he reaches, he sees a person and wonders if he is hurt. Kyujo goes near the person and can just see some sticks. Kyujo asks the person if he is okay, but it is not late that a monster comes out of nowhere. He has no clue why it is here and why it is covered in fluid. He cannot understand anything. Kyujo's legs start to shake and he falls on the ground due to fear. However, when he looks up, some monsters are standing right above him and they start to beat him up. Kyujo cannot understand what these are and thinks if this continues he will be no more. Therefore, he kicks one of them and runs towards the safe point, as this is his last chance, and he will not let it end like this. As he takes his steps away from the monsters catch him again, and Kyujo thinks it hurts, but if this continues he will be no more, and this is his last chance to save himself as he promised to protect his daughter Yu. He keeps yelling as the monster beat him up, but after some time, he gets back to normal and starts to wonder what just happened, as he was going to be no more and now he is totally fine with zero issues. He looks at himself and thinks, why is he unarmed and has nothing to cover his belongings? When he looks around, it is the same place where he arrived and wonders if all this was a dream. Kyujo thinks that all this cannot be a dream because the pain was real and wonders if he returned back to the first point after getting beaten up. He looks at the peak and wonders what is this place, and comes saying the foolish sinners who are unable to ascend to heaven cannot even fall to the ground. She asks him to begin again and asks him to take on the challenge of purifying his soul. She asks him to challenge it as many times as he likes until he gets tired. She says all this while having an evilly smile on her face. Hyujo and the other guy meet after they reach the first point again, but they do not know why they are in such a situation, and the army guy says that before he knew he was like this. Both of them sit together to figure out what is going on here, and Hyujo says that he has no clue at all. He says as he was making his way through the forest, he was stuck in a messed up situation where monster came to beat him up. After that, he found himself here, and then the army boy claims that he was beaten from behind, and Hyujo says that he saw his sticks though. Both of them start to wonder if they are no more, but then how come they are still feeling okay? The army boy says that they were restored with another body and claims that stuff like that only happens in video games. They are not sure if this is really the world after end, and they do not want to accept it at all. The army guy says, if it is, then everything is ruined. He starts to yell and says that it cannot get worse than this, and he participated in the worst game ever. He says he found it to be odd when the guide said that it does not matter how long they take, even if it is steep. It does not take long to climb a mountain that is not even snowy. Hyujo asks the army guy what he means by the game, and the army guy points his finger towards the mountains and says that he is certain that the mountain is crawling with those monsters, and if they get beaten up by them, they will end up back here. He claims that it will happen again and again and again. He says it will continue forever and it will keep happening. After listening to this, Hyujo starts to feel scared, and the army guy says that he thought there was no way the only condition coming back to life is climbing a mountain. But he never imagined whatever is happening here. Both of them start to feel sad and hopeless, and then the army guy gets up and Hyujo asks him if he is going to go again. Hyujo says to him that he will get beaten up again, and the army guy says with a deep voice that his son was just born and his name is Sue. He is always so cute when he used to take care of him, and as he lets out a big yawn, he looks so cute. The army guy feels motivated, and he wants to go back to his normal life. He refuses to stay here and miss out on watching him grow on. He says someone is bound to reach the door someday. If so, he cannot just sit here and do nothing. Therefore, he decides to go again and give it a try. Meanwhile, Hyujo thinks about his daughter Yu and says that there is no telling that they will be restored again, and then he asks the army guy if he will still give it a try after knowing that. Hyujo, with a lot of hope but zero energy, gets up and says that he has to go as well. The army guy looks at him and asks how about they explore the foothills together for a bit. Hyujo looks at him and asks if he wants to go exploring, but he says that they will fall behind and others will reach the top. The army guy says that he does not think they can progress with those monsters around. Perhaps they can advance quicker if they cooperate and investigate the mountain first. The army guy leads his hand towards Hyujo, asking him to cooperate and make an investigation together, and introduces himself as Akama Kaoru. Hyujo also introduces himself and agrees to investigate with him. Akama says that they should move once they are mentally prepared. Both of them start to walk towards the mountains again, and they reach a forest. Hyujo says to Akama that they have been here before too, and asks if they get restored at a different location than where they were first. Akama says that it is possible, as they have not run into anyone. Anyway, they have learned that this place seems to have a structure resembling that of volcanic island. They kept exploring, and Hyujo says that no matter how far they went, they could just see water, and he claims that it is more like a sea or lake rather than the Sanzu River. Akama says the only thing they could do is to go up the mountains and explore. Amidst, Akama gets hurt by something, and he says it is really tough to walk here without shoes and they need something to create an alternative. However, there is nothing they can use, and they have been walking for hours and they have not seen anything aside from trees and rocks. Akama finds it bad, and he asks Hyujo if he found any animals or plants on his initial attempt. Hyujo says that he only saw trees, and he asks Akama why is this bad. Akama asks Hyujo to keep the shoes problem on side and says that it has been on his mind since this is the end of everything. He is apparently hungry. After he mentions it, Hyujo says the mountain looks to be 6,000 meters high, and reaching the peak in 2-3 days seems very likely. If so, they would need several worth of food and water, and if they cannot find any, then things will be bad. Hyujo looked around and he claims that there is nothing around this area, and there has to be something in a place this big. Akama finds it optimistic and asks Hyujo to explore around a little here more before they go deeper. Amidst, Akama hears something and he grabs Hyujo and hides behind something big. Hyujo asks Akama what he is trying to do, as his stick is right in the middle of the hole, and Akama says that it is them again. They see another men beaten up by those huge stick-head monsters, and everyone is tied with a huge long queue. Both of them start to wonder why are they doing this, and wonder if this is some sort of display. They wonder if they are turning them into a trophy. Whatever the case is, they find it messed up. Hyujo asks Akama that they should explore it and investigate about it, but they will discover them if they stay there. However, Akama is something about something else and he asks Kyujo to beat them all up and move on. After hearing it, Kyujo's eyes are left wide open and he starts to shiver like a fast blind is blowing. When Akama asks Kyujo to beat them up with him and move on, Kyujo could not believe it and he asks Akama to stop. He asks why would they do it and Akama asks him to think about it. As it stands, their only option is to proceed without being detected by those monsters, and beating them up, it will give them more options. He says there are only 2 right now and they will easily do it. However, Kyujo is scared to do that and he says it is too dangerous as they were just beaten up by them. Kyujo is worried what will they do if the monsters beat them up again, but Akama asks him not to worry and says if he is right about this, they should be able to pull it off. Kyujo watches the monsters and gets more scared. In the midst, Akama goes to beat the monster up and asks Kyujo to help him. Kyujo runs to beat the other one and he feels powerful as he is able to hold one down. Akama taught him how to beat them up and Kyujo is doing as Akama told him. After getting rid of the monster, Kyujo says he zoned out for a bit, and Akama tells him that it is free job. He tells him if it goes well, it will lose consciousness and if he keeps squeezing, he should be able to get rid of it completely. Kyujo asks Akama what if it does not work and Akama tells him to just hold it down so that it does not come towards him. He says once one of them is no more, he will beat up the other one together. However, Kyujo is still scared to do that because he does not know if he will be able to do that. Akama motivates Kyujo and says that it is first for him too, and he does not know if they will be able to get rid of them or not, until they give it a try. Then Akama claims that he has a feeling that it will not be too difficult if they hold down on their own. He says when he was beaten up earlier, he had a grip on one of them but he remembers it being pretty easy, like he was dealing with a child. He says their appearance is strange, but he thinks they are just as light and easy as they look. Akama says if he is right, even Kyujo can pull it off and he asks Kyujo not to get scared and just keep beating it up with all his might. While Kyujo is holding the monster, he thinks about all that, but it is not going smoothly and it even stinks, but they decide not to let go. Kyujo decides to keep this going and wonders if he is seriously going to get rid of this monster. He looks towards the monster and the monster gets up and tries to beat Kyujo, but Akama comes and saves him from it. Then Akama asks Kyujo why did he hesitate against a monster as he almost lost everything, and Kyujo says sorry to him. Kyujo claims that it is too heavy of a burden for him. Akama looks into his eyes and says that it is maybe kindness, but he has to get rid of that or else he will just be a burden while going forward. While Akama is talking to Kyujo, one of the monsters gets up to beat Akama, but Kyujo jumps towards the monster to beat it up. Kyujo asks Akama to hurry up and help him and both of them get rid of that monster together. Kyujo says that it was close and Akama says sorry to Kyujo and takes his words back. Akama is happy about the fact that Kyujo saved him and he says thanks to him, and Kyujo says that there is nothing wrong with what he said. Both of them shake their hands and they feel glad that they are fine. Both of them now know that the monster can be defeated and that is one step forward in conquering the mountain. Kyujo says that he feels like he is a little less fearless now and he can beat more monsters. Akama then looks at the monsters and says that they might as well borrow their belongings. Kyujo says they might get punished if they do that, and Akama asks if it is not better than how they are right now. Then he says that they are not in real world, so there is no punishment for it as no one is going to do that. As he says this, a huge monster opens its wide mouth and Akama and Kyujo shockingly stare at it and have no clue what to do. The big monster gets rid of Akama and Kyujo gets shocked after seeing it, as it is not like the one from earlier. He wonders if this monster came out of the ground. Kyujo has no clue and the only thing he can do is to run away or else the monster is going to beat him up too. As Kyujo runs, the monster chases him and the gap is not shortening. It seems like the monster is not fast. However, when he tries to run faster, the monster hits him with something and he falls on the ground. Kyujo thinks that all this is not good as he cannot move at all and the monster is going to beat him up. The monster beats him up, and Kyujo finds something off about it when he thinks about it. He thinks only the ground for that place was smooth and they were gathering sticks with clothes there and it was as though they were going to beat them suddenly. He wonders if it could be to catch people and beat them and wonders if those monsters are capable to do that. Kyujo's sensations are back and he wonders if he has been restored again, but he cannot breathe. He wants to get out and when he tries to reach the light coming from a hole, he comes out of the flowers ground where he came at first. He feels glad that he made it out, but he does not want to feel good because he is still stuck there and he got beaten once again. He thinks about Akama and then wonders how many more times he has to repeat this. However, he has a hope because of this repetition. he can make it to the peak. Kyujo gets to the start point again, and when he looks around and sees other people too. People keep yelling and asking about the place, and the girl asks them to be quiet as everything is out and shown. One of the guy feels angry because Tamoria did not told them about the monsters and they feel deceived by her. The guy yells at Tamoria to come out and he wants to beat her up. Amidst, Tamoria comes out and asks if she deceived them. She says she is surprised to hear that, and the guy who was yelling at her cannot believe where she came from. Tamoria says that she said it earlier that she does not recommend to go there, and the guy yells at her that he will not accept those monsters just because she said. He says there was no such thing like restoring from start. Tamoria sighs and says that he is such a spoiled guy. She says death is a fate given equally to all living beings, and she asks him if he thought it will be easy to overturn it. She asks them to consider it as a blessing that those who are no more have a glimmer of hope. The guy angrily grabs her melon and Tamoria asks him what is he trying to do, but the guy yells at her to stay quiet as she has really made him angry. He does not want to forgive her and says that he thought she had a great look since he first saw her, and he wants to insert the stick in the small tight hole of melon before beating it up. The guy tries to proceed and Kyujo yells at him to stop right away, but it is too late, and a black thing comes to grab the guy's hand and it beats him up. Tamoria gets up and asks them not to do that and not to cause any trouble here while holding a huge rope of monsters in her hand. Tamoria gets angry at the guy who tried to insert the little stick in the melons, and she yells at everyone not to cause trouble and teaches him a lesson. Meanwhile, Kyujo is in shock where that black long thing came from. The guy who was causing the trouble tries to mess with her again, but Tamoria stops him and tears the page in half. She asks him what can he do and asks the guy if he still wants to fool around. Meanwhile, the girl yells and runs towards a certain direction. Tamoria asks her where she is headed to and sees the girl running into the water. The girl says that she has had enough of this place and she will just end everything normally. However, when she goes into the water, she cannot float and she cannot swim. She goes underwater and sees a lot of bones there while Kyujo is wondering why she is not coming up. He thinks the girl will be in trouble if he does not help her. Tamoria says to Kyujo it is better for him not to help her or else he will sink into the water and it is impossible to leave without a boat. The guy who got beaten up by Tamoria asks what is the place and asks why is she doing this. Tamoria with a smile says it is a purification to cleanse impure things like them. The guy asks her what is she talking about as he does not understand anything, and Tamoria tells him that he will understand it eventually. She asks them if they would like to proceed or end here. She says to the guy if he ends here, his arms will return to normal. Everyone stays quiet and then Tamoria looks at Kyujo and asks what is he going to do. Kyujo thinks that there is no way out, but he does not want to give up as that is not an option for him. He thinks about his daughter and says he has to go as he got no other choice. He runs towards the mountains again while yelling due to pain, and Tamoria says that it is good for him. As Kyujo reaches the forest, he hides from a monster behind a tree, but he wants to quickly proceed. Kyujo has an advantage as the monster has not noticed him yet, plus it is just one there. He wonders if he should give up on this path to be safe or should he get behind it. When he thinks about it, he decides not to fight with the monster because last time Akama was there and there could also be more enemies nearby. He says those monsters from earlier might still be around and there could even be other points where he can get caught. He looks at the monster and decides not to fight again because there is no way he can do that. Therefore, he decides to take a detour. He quietly starts to walk away from there, but when he keeps his foot on the ground a sound is made and he looks towards the monster. He starts to run away while saying this is bad and keeps running with all that he got or else he will be beaten up by the monster again. He keeps running and steps on a hole that was not visible and falls in there. The huge monster is right behind him and Kyujo thinks that he knew it. No matter how many times he repeats it, he cannot reach the peak with his own abilities as it is impossible to do that for him. Kyujo closes his eyes as he thinks he will be sent back to the start, but someone comes and gets rid of the monster and Kyujo gets saved. When Kyujo looks behind, he sees another monster and thinks what will he do now, but a little Tarzan girl tells him that he needs to calm down as the monster is just asking about his well-being. Kyujo looks at the girl and gets shocked that how can a little girl save him and he cannot save himself. He starts to question his existence. The monster that came with the little girl smells Kyujo, and the little girl tells the monster named Gramps that the person is okay and he is not hurt at all. The grandfather monster starts to walk away and Kyujo starts to wonder why he saved him and wonders if it is a human. The little girl approaches Kyujo and says that he is lucky as Gramps happened to find him. Kyujo asks the girl if he is her grandfather and she says no, he is not her grandfather. The girl walks away saying it is time to go and bids goodbye to Kyujo. Kyujo shouts at them to stop and then joins them while thinking those two are amazing. He thinks they are climbing this like a piece of cake and they are breathing heavily at all. He keeps thinking about them and wonders if they make clothes and tools by hand in such a short period of time. He thinks they might have survival experience when they were on Earth and decides to ask them later. Then he starts to think about the little girl and thinks that with that many people, he and the little girl got no other choice to come back to life. The little girl turns around and tells him that there is no point in following them. Kyujo says sorry to them and says that he did not have the nerves to be alone in that place and asks the girl if she is not scared as this place is full of monsters. The little girl claims that she is used to it and Kyujo wonders how is that possible already and thinks that there must be something. He asks the girl how old she is and she claims that she is around 16 or 17 years old. Kyujo could not believe that she is a teen and says it out loud. The little girl looks at him and he apologizes to her for the mistake. Kyujo thinks that she is certainly small but she looks like a first grader to him. He wonders if all that was a joke or did she dodge the question. The little girl tells Kyujo if he wants to come back to life, he needs to go alone. Kyujo thinks that she is right, as she also wants to go back to life and he is here in her way. Therefore, he apologizes to her for being there and says thanks to her for saving him. The little girl looks at him and says that he has not been stained yet and asks if he is a newcomer. She tells her grandpa that there is one here and a monster spots them. The crazy monster runs towards them and Kyujo wonders how fast can it run because the movement of leg is too weird. Kyujo starts to run but the little girl runs towards the monster and hits the monster with it. Kyujo could not believe what his eyes just saw as such a little girl defeated a monster. He starts to wonder about it and then thinks about the clothes and wonders how he puts them. Come to think of it, it has been like that from the start. He understands that these two are too usual to this world. Kyujo could not believe it and he asks the little girl, how long has she been here? The girl asks him, what will he do with that information and Kyujo requests her to tell him about that. The little girl claims that she came here when she was 6 and she has not counted properly, but she would say it has been roughly 10 years. She says Gramps has been here longer than her. Kyujo understands that he had the wrong idea, that there are only those people who are here. He understands that this is the life after life and there is no way they were the only ones who were sent here. He thinks about people who were sent here even before 10 years and wonders how many people could be here. Kyujo understands that all of them are here and no one ever reached the peak. Kyujo gets goosebumps after thinking about it and he tells himself not to think like that. Otherwise he will not be able to advance. Kyujo is an overthinker and he does not stop thinking. He keeps thinking and then decides to spend some time in this world and he finds himself lucky to run into these two people. He thinks if he can learn about this world from them, then he will have a little chance. While he is having these thoughts, someone yells for help. Therefore, all of them go to see the person who is seriously hurt. Kyujo says they have to do something as he needs treatment. He thinks maybe these two know how to treat him and he asks them if they know anything about it. However, the girl hits the guy hurt and Kyujo angrily asks her what is she and why she did that. Kyujo yells at the little girl, asking what she has done. He keeps yelling at her because the man could have been saved. Therefore, he asks her why she has done something so terrible. The little girl says, let's say he survives those injuries, what then? She claims that he will return anyway. She takes out the fluid and drinks it right in front of Kyujo saying they will use this. Kyujo gets shocked after seeing her and he asks her how could she do that as he is a human. The little girl says that she will tell him about it as he does not know about it, so there is no food or water in this world and this is the only option they have. She says the only food here is this, and Kyujo could not believe whatever she is saying is true. He yells at her to stop as he is not ready to believe it. According to Kyujo, this is too much to handle and he stays stuck where he was. He is not able to follow them anymore and remembers how the little girl told him that this is different from humans and it is created in this world. The girl asked him why he thinks they have body and Kyujo understands everything when she taught him about all this. Kyujo starts to understand about the flowers at the beginning area have their roots create bodies beneath the ground and in other words, their bodies are more like vegetables and meat, with a soul in it. The little girl told him that he can have a body in this world and be brought back to normal many times. She says their structure is similar, so they feel hunger and they have to take it in order to maintain it. Kyujo understands it, as they have been here over 10 years and he decides to follow them in order to come back to normal. He runs behind them and wonders if there is any point in following them and wonders if he can do the same thing they do. He thinks about it, but stops right away. Kyujo's stomach starts to hurt and the little girl tells him that he is at his limit. She tells Gramps to go and help Kyujo, and Gramps give him finger-licking food, and the little girl says to Gramps that he does not have to give him any as it will be a waste. She tells Kyujo that Gramps is sharing his food with him and says that it is valuable, so he should eat it. Kyujo takes the finer-licking food but cannot eat it, so the little girl throws her stick towards him and says his only option is to eat if he wants to aim for the peak. She says if he cannot do it, he should give up and choose another option. Kyujo is not sure what she is talking about, so she elaborates that he should keep getting hurt and call it whatever. She says if he is no more, his hunger will go away and he will no longer need to eat, and by doing this, he will be at ease. Kyujo could not listen to it, and he starts to eat it. Kyujo starts to tell her a story that he has a daughter at school, and she is about her age. He says the person who hurt him is going to hurt his daughter, and he is trying to go back to save her. He says she will manage on her own and eats all of the food. After eating it, he says it tastes like vegetables. Kyujo does not want to give up, which is why he is doing all this. He tells this to the little girl and says that he promised that he would protect his daughter. He claims that he will do whatever he can to save his daughter. As he says this, he throws out everything and the little girl looks aside thinking he is a father. The little lady tells Kyujo that Gramps' name is Tetsuhachi and she is Nero. Kyujo calls her little Nero, and she tells him not to call her like that as she is not a child. Nero goes near him and gives him something, so Kyujo asks what is that. She tells him if he is going to follow them, he should make a cloth for hiding their belongings. Kyujo agrees with it and says that he will get right to it. He picks up the cloth and something unusual happens, so he asks Nero what was that. She claims that it is living skin and Kyujo gets scared. Nero angrily tells him that it is normal and he should stop dancing over every little thing as she finds it annoying. He picks it up thinking it is vegetable and finally makes one cloth to hide the stick and the two big valleys. Nero tells him that it is poorly made and it will break easily. Kyujo picks it up again and starts over again. Amidst, Tetsuhachi comes and takes the cloth from his hand. He starts to remake for him and Nero says that materials cannot be wasted and this sort of thing has been in him. Tetsuhachi makes the cloth and Kyujo says that it is very different from what he made. He says thanks to that Gramps Tetsuhachi, but Gramps does not reply. Kyujo wonders how did he not hear him and wonders if he is deaf or if he does not like him. Kyujo feels down and says sorry to them, claiming that he knows they are also trying to go back to normal life, and yet here he is giving them all sorts of trouble. Kyujo says he will do his best to stop being a problem for them as soon as possible. Nero tells Kyujo that Gramps is not ignoring him and asks him not to take it in the wrong way. She says she will tell him everything as he seems to have the wrong idea. Nero claims that they are not thinking of coming back to normal life and Kyujo could not believe what he just heard. Nero says she told him that it is pointless to follow them because they are not even aiming for the peak. Kyujo asks them what are they, and how can they not aim for it. The little Nero says that they are on an adventure, and Gramps will continue exploring this world forever. Kyujo could not believe that they are here for an adventure. Nero explains that Gramps was an adventurer when he was living a normal life and he traveled over the world, but he ended up being here in an accident. She says since he is here he has quite a bit of regret, but this world is more unknown and harsher than the world of the living. She says it is just like a heaven for an adventurer. That is why he told her that he would rather stay here and explore than to go back to normal life, and she is just tagging along. Kyujo understands everything, but he is not sure about the decision of staying here and exploring than coming back to a normal life. Kyujo mistakenly says that it is not normal but realizes it and says sorry to them. Nero says it is fine and there no need to be sorry as it is a fact. She says Gramps is paying the price for staying in this world for too long and he is about to become an end human. Kyujo asks her what she meant by an end human and Nero says that they stayed here for too long. She is trying to explain. Amidst, Kyujo asks her to run as the monsters are coming here and at this rate they will be surrounded by them. She holds Kyujo while monsters are everywhere around them and the topic of end humans remains pending. Nero asks Kyujo to hurry up as the monsters are coming and at this rate they will get surrounded by the end humans. Kyujo asks Nero to help Tetsuhachi as he is stuck there and Nero just says the word again. Kyujo asks her what she meant by again, and she says as one progress into an end human, there are times when a person loses their ability to make rational decisions. She says there are only risks to fight in this situation. Both of them keep looking for Gramp and Nero says that he is too close to them and she cannot throw her arrow at the monsters. Meanwhile, Kyujo is thinking about end humans. While Gramps is messing with all of the monsters, he beats them all up. Kyujo understands that those monsters are end humans and Tetsuhachi is on the verge of becoming one. After realizing, Kyujo asks Nero if those monsters are the end results and she says that those are humans who came here. She asks Kyujo what he thinks happens to the people who come here like this and claims that their minds end, and that is just the start. She claims that as they continue to be exposed to heat, they will cry, feel distressed, and in the end, they will feel stressed and become empty. A human on the verge of becoming empty where they are abandoned. Nero claims that is what an end human is. Kyujo asks her if it will happen to everyone here and she says yes. In a few months at the earliest, Gramps lasted a long time because he was enjoying this world. Despite all that, his end is very near. After listening to all this, Kyujo could not believe that there is actually a time limit. He thinks if he does not return before that, then he will not be able to save Yu, and he will also become one of those monsters. Kyujo sees Tetsuhachi and wonders what he is doing while thinking about returning back to normal life. After seeing Tetsuhachi doing something unusual, Nero and Kyujo shouts at him to stop. Nero says to Gramps if he goes any further, he will be no longer human. She keeps asking Gramps to stop. Nero's eyes get filled with tears and she goes away to cry. Therefore, Kyujo goes near her, but she asks him to leave her alone and Kyujo sits next to her. Nero asks him if he did not hear her and he says he heard her and claims that he is just taking a seat here. He says he wants to clear his head too. Nero tells him that he is annoying and he says that his daughter often told him that. After staying quiet for a bit, Kyujo asks Nero if he can ask her about something. He asks her why she is following Tetsuhachi, as she already said that he was not a family and that she was just following along. He says if something like earlier happens again, could she be the one in danger? Kyujo asks all this out of curiosity and Nero says that she was like him when she first came here. She was completely confused and did not know a thing. She says Gramps saved her when she was completely helpless and after that she just went and started to follow him. She claims that she learned all sorts of things from him, like how to live, how to create tools, how to fight. He taught her everything. Kyujo understands why she is with him as he saved her life, but he asks her if she intends to stay with him. Nero says yes, she will intend to stay with him till the end and keeps crying while saying all this. After hearing it, Kyujo shockingly looks at her and gets speechless. At night, all of them lay down to rest and Kyujo looks at Nero and thinks that there was a time when Yu was that young. He thinks a little child all alone in a place like this. Just thinking about it gives him chills. He thinks she must have been so scared and sad, but someone appeared and saved her during her time of distress, and it is no surprise that she is unable to be separated from him. Kyujo keeps laying down and his mind keeps thinking about them. He starts to think if there is a way for Tetsuhachi to not become an end human when he reaches its peak and thinks about it. He is sad about the fact that Nero will be all alone if he becomes an end human and he cannot stay here because he wouldn't be able to save his daughter Yu from Watanabe. He keeps thinking and joining links, but there is nothing in his mind that can be done and there is nothing that he can do. While trying to sleep, he sees Tetsuhachi getting up, and he wonders what happened and where he is going. He sees Tetsuhachi comes towards Nero while Nero is holding her stick in her hands. When Kyujo sees Gramps getting close to Nero, he thinks this is bad. Gramps makes some crazy sounds but Kyujo cannot move as he does not know what to do. Meanwhile, Nero also wakes up and picks her stick, but when she looks behind, Gramps has already left. She runs towards Gramps and Kyujo asks her to calm down because the end humans will find them if she yells like that. He says Gramps left his belongings behind and there is no way he will go somewhere without his tools, says Nero. Then she says that his mind is completely gone and she starts to wonder what she should do. It is because once they are separated, they may never see each other again. Nero says that she has to find him at once and Kyujo tells her that she has the wrong idea. Kyujo says that he believes Tetsuhachi made the decision to leave her so that he would not harm her when he becomes a monster. Nero could not believe it and she asks Kyujo if he thinks they have not given it a thought when a time comes like this. She says becoming an end human is a given in this world and they have seen it happen countless times. That is why they are determined to stay together until the end, even if that is what he resolved to do. Kyujo says that once it comes down to it, he believes he would make decision he did. Kyujo continues saying that Tetsuhachi thought of her as a daughter, and the thought of hurting her must have been unbearably terrifying. After hearing it, Nero starts to yell at Kyujo to shut up as he does not know anything about Gramps. Kyujo yells back at her to listen to him and tells her that staying together any longer will cause her pain and she has to understand where Tetsuhachi is coming from. Nero cannot listen to it, and she yells at Kyujo to shut up right away. She runs away from there thinking who does Kyujo thinks he is. He does not know anything about Gramps when he just met him. While running, she realizes what she is going to do if Gramps is no more. Amidst, something hits her and the monster tries to beat her up. Meanwhile, Nero keeps thinking that she cannot end here as she rarely won't see Gramps if this happens. Amidst, Kyujo comes and messes with the monster and asks Nero to run away divided by. He managed to push down the monster but he does not know what to do now. The monster grabs him and he thinks, if he ends here so will Nero. Therefore, he decides to do something about it, so that he can help Nero and save his life too.